What am I doing on here? What is even life anymore? What is the whole point of any of this? Why are we thinking? Why are we feeling? Why are we listening? I don't think anybody even is doing any of that stuff. Everybody's brain is shut completely off. Are you even paying attention to anything that I'm saying right now? Are you paying attention to the world around you? Like, what the f is going on? People really truly are becoming too stupid for their own good. Increasingly, the most unscrupulous and annoying and cringe and moronic dumbasses of the century are controlling the levers of power, and the dude who may in fact end up running the Department of Health and Human Services is working on his second brain worm with like a Big Mac on probably a plane that Jeffrey Epstein was flying on at some point. It's time for Let's Argue. Yep, we're hopping on the internet, we're arguing, because that's what time it is. It's time to argue, baby! Hype Denzel is better than introspective Denzel. Don't get me wrong, Zell's great at both, and I love Taboo and Melt My Eyes, but Zoo and King of the Mischievous South is so overlooked, plus he flows best on those types of tracks. Maybe I'm the wrong person to respond to this take because I famously keep giving Denzel 8s. Yeah, it's just one 8 after the next. I just can't stop, and I apologize. I truly think the best thing about Denzel is his continued evolution and his ability to explore different sounds and vibes and sort of like thematic concepts, and the fact that all of his projects are so vastly different. It's cool. It's refreshing. It's what's actually made him continue to be relevant long past the point. Many an artist who might have had much larger commercial peaks than he did at the start of the 2010s, in the middle of the 2010s, toward the end of the fucking 2010s. And I don't think it's really a matter of like what version of him is better than another version. Like, every version of him so far has been great. And honestly, if you were to erase one version of him in favor of another, I feel like that would just be to his detriment as an artist. It would be a detriment. I don't want to see one version of Denzel without the other version of Denzel. I feel like it's the greater context of his abilities and everything that he does and can do that makes him an awesome artist. Politics in music is good. Not all music needs to be political, but discussing what is happening in the real world is completely natural. Wanting a world without political music is political in of itself, and also a cowardly desire to retreat into mindless consumerist escapism. Yeah, and another thing that I feel like is important about sort of like politics in music, or just like art in general, is that it can be motivating and validating. I feel like in music and in content broadly, there's like this pressure that is placed onto people, or that people put on themselves, to just be like, oh, I need to have like the most original, like most new, most fresh, most like cutting edge take on everything. No, you can just like find a different way, or even just the same way, to just like say the correct thing, or say the right thing, or say the most compassionate, most sensible, most common sense thing. You can just say it, and there's like value in that. You don't have to have the perspective or the take that everyone agrees with. You don't have to have like, a doctorate in political science or social sciences in order to have a perspective on things and to have a valid perspective on things. Of course, the art shouldn't suffer at the hands of the message at the end of the day, but it does kind of suck how many people are sort of like afraid to really kind of like jump in and say something of substance sometimes. On the topic of shit as important as like, I don't know, human rights, losing a few people that think like, no, actually like genocide's pretty cool. Fuck those people. Who cares if you lose them? They're assholes. What's the value of having freaks like that in the ranks of your audience, honestly? Which is worse? Hearing someone rhyme a word with itself, or being able to predict a rhyme before it happens? I suppose like I'm happy to hear both, depending upon the context. When I'm able to complete a rhyme in my own head before it actually happens, I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes it does happen kind of often, but I feel like that's just as a result of having heard a lot of shit. You know, I mean, I feel like if you hear enough things, you can see a lot of things coming, and that doesn't just go for lyrics, that also goes for like maybe certain transitions or chord changes and musical ideas that tend to just like play very well in kind of a mainstream context with a lot of different genres. And I think at one point you have to kind of like, you know, suspend in your head the need for things and for music to be and for art to be surprising. You know, just because a piece of art is surprising doesn't mean it's good, and a piece of art doesn't need to be surprising in order for it to be quality. If I have to pick between these two, I'll say rhyming a word with itself, though again, there are contexts in which I think that works, where it can be like kind of funny or self-aware, or where maybe in addition to that word, you're rhyming other words surrounding that word. I think that's like kind of a context where that's a bit more acceptable. So that's my answer to your question. Okay? That's my answer. Minecraft Volume Alpha deserves more credit for putting an entire generation onto ambient music. Yeah, it's really like the, you know, music for airports of our generation. I think you could probably argue the Minecraft soundtrack had a further spread culturally than, you know, Brian Eno's ambient works. Though, I mean, you know, a lot of people have certainly heard his musical contributions to the Windows sound set. Brian Eno, in his own way, definitely like contributed to modern music aesthetics, or the sort of musical aesthetics that are like really embedded in our psyches due to the fact that just like so many people were exposed to them in a casual context, you know? Casual as you're kind of playing a video game in the background, or casual as you're just like logging on to your computer to look at some porn. Big artists have a moral responsibility to prevent the entertainment industry from ripping off their fans. I feel like people have to sort of like understand that like a lot of what goes on as far as like the big, gigantic, major ticketing corporations and so on and so forth, this is really like shit that is out of the hands of a lot of artists. I mean, if you're as big as like The Cure, or you're as big as like Taylor Swift and shit like that, for sure you have the ability to sort of like, you know, leverage certain things and sort of like, you know, push things in your direction. Honestly, a lot of smaller artists cannot play ball like that, and on top of it, like a lot of them are getting ripped the fuck off when it comes to actually making money on touring as well. It's like actually one of the biggest crocks of shit that is kind of continually growing in the music industry right now, because for a long time, as artists were making less and less and less money off of digital sales and streaming and so on and so forth. The argument was always like, oh, well, you know, at least they're making money off touring. At least they're making money off performances. And now it sort of seems like that's becoming more and more of a difficult thing to do. And now it's only like, you know, the Taylor Swifts of the industry and the biggest artists of the industry that are sort of like, you know, really raking in the fucking dough on, you know, their giant festival-sized performances. And it's just getting more and more difficult and harder for everybody else. Doechii will be on the Mount Rushmore of female rap artists. She has the potential right now to just be on the Mount Rushmore of rap artists. Not female rap artists, just rap artists. She's a good lyricist. She picks some damn good beats sometimes, and she has the capacity for coming together with good concepts and great storytelling too. You know, it's just a matter of whether or not that ends up kind of like evolving into a quality catalog. I feel like her new project, Alligator Bites, is really just like, again, it's obviously a mixtape and it's been marketed as such, but you know, it's really like a compilation of all of these various things that she can do and pull off and perform and execute. And I'm hoping that she and her team are paying attention to the moments and the tracks off of that project that are doing the best and are being well received the most. I feel like the most popular tracks off that record are actually like the truly the best moments, and I hope that she sort of like drifts in the direction of the most well-received bits off that record. And I think if she does, like we'll be in for a really killer rap album come 2025, 2026, fingers fucking crossed. Music discourse on Instagram is absolutely terrible. It seems like I'm talking to people who make listening to one genre of music their entire personality, aka born in the wrong generation kids. And if you slightly disagree with them, they call you the same unfunny jokes Swiftie. You probably listen to Cardi, a random GIF, etc. But if you show any form of enjoyment, you're labeled a glazer, which is stupid as hell. Literally the only artists on IG that you can like without getting banished into the shadow realm are Kanye West, Clairo, the Beatles, Radiohead, and for some reason, Creed. I feel like you've also just kind of simultaneously described music discourse on Twitter too, and really music discourse on social media at large, though I do think there are some pockets of YouTube that are a bit odd and niche and specific, and I think that also is the case for some pockets of TikTok too. I feel like discourse on the internet is getting worse and worse. I've talked about this in many a video, in many a piece of content. If I'm to sort of like shorten that opinion or view down to two key reasons. One, comment sections are curated. It's not just the comments that are just being posted in succession. Comment sections are curated to favor and throw in your face first the posts and the opinions that are either polarizing, extremely disagreeable, or are just like very short and fast and quippy and humorous. Rare is it that anything that is thoughtful or takes a while to digest is rising to the top in the comments, which incentivizes a certain kind of discourse. Algorithms have just been so fucking effective in terms of like walling people off into the very specific set of things that they enjoy the most intensely. And as a result, there's no like greater shared understanding or appreciation of many things these days. Everybody's just like holed off into their own little world. There's not a lot of things that we're all sort of like collectively liking and collectively enjoying. So it's easy again for people to sort of like be getting at each other's throats because there's no like greater appreciation for the stuff that, you know, other crowds of people are listening to. I'm going to eat a hot dog for lunch. I mean, if you want, I'm not going to stop you. After all, I really can't. But, you know, if I was there with you, I would cook for you. I would cook for you something less shitty.
I'm hungry, so I'm gonna have a hot dinner. Eat it. Nuke it in the microwave, and I got dinner. Set the timer, see that's how I clock.
I'm going to leave it there. You guys are the best. Love you. Over here next to my head, here's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, let's argue forever.